Good morning. Welcome to Youth Sunday at First Baptist Church, Jonesville. We welcome our regular worshiping family, as well as any guests we may have with us today. If you are a visitor, please fill out the card in front of you and place it in the offering plate during the service. Please join me in the responsive reading inside of your bulletin. I am at rest in God alone. My salvation comes from Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my stronghold. I will never be shaken. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All who follow His instructions have good insight. You will free me from the net that is secretly set for me, for you are my refuge. Into your hand I entrust my spirit. You have redeemed me, Lord, God of truth. How good and pleasant it is when brothers live together in harmony.
I was lost with a broken heart. You picked me up, now I'm set apart. From the ash I am born again, forever safe in the Savior's hands.
know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me. For you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all day long. Remember your mercy, O Lord, your steadfast love. For they have been from old. Remember not the sins from my youth or my transgressions. According to your steadfast love, remember me. For the sake of your goodness, O Lord, good and upright is the Lord. Therefore the instruct sinner in the way, he leads the humble in what is right, and teaches the humble his way. All the paths of the Lord are steadfast love and faithfulness for those who keep his covenant and all his testimonies.
So this was my 4th year of camp as Molly's going to say, as a grown-up and not a camper. We had another great year at Ridgecrest. We really enjoyed the facility there because of the weather, and the food. So those are our selling points for going every year to Ridgecrest. Before the youth come up and begin to share their experiences from their Fuge camp this year, I took 10 youth, 5 boys and 5 girls, with us, and the girls chose this year, instead of doing Centrifuge, to do Mission Fuge. And so their stories will be a little bit different from what the guys will share. We were at the same camp, but we got to do a combination, and so that was really nice, even though I think the girls missed Centrifuge and the playtime, and even walking up the dreaded Wreck Hill twice a day there at the conference center. I want to give a really big thank you to Missy Tharp and Keith Macy for going again with us to camp and taking time away from their family and from work that they could be doing. And to thank Pam for all the paperwork and logistics that go into camp, which is a worse headache than going to camp. And a special thanks to Cricket for helping me and the youth get all of this together this morning, because even though I might be from a techno generation, I know nothing about it, so I appreciate that she's sitting back there and doing it all through her phone, which amazes me that all this can be done through that. But anyway, thank you. I appreciate it. This year's theme, which is on our shirts, was convergence and about choosing the right path. They talked every night and during our morning Bible study and at night and told us stories of David. Your responsive reading that Lindsay gave to you were our points for the day. So through point of inception, they showed us how David's path began as a lowly shepherd boy, but who, because of his experience in keeping the sheep safe and protecting that flock, it gave him what he needed to take down a giant. With point of truth, we learned how David had the opportunity to do away with Saul in a cave. And our funniest part from that was when they said he was relieving himself. And that even David's men were saying, look, God has put him here for this reason, that you could just do away with him now. And yet David said no, he would not, because he did not listen to his friends or the world's path. He listened to the path he was on for God, so that he could get wisdom and insight. Our third point from camp was the point of reconciliation. And the preacher gave a very good definition of reconciliation, and I wrote it out in my Bible, and it said, to remove tension from a relationship. And I thought, oh, how nice is that? And what a gift that is from God, to remove conflict and tension from a relationship. The youth learned about when David fell off of his path because he wasn't perfect, to the point of having an affair and eventually killing Uriah in battle. But that God, with this reconciliation of David, forgave his sins and put him back on the right path again. And that will continue to happen for us often. And every time we do, God is there to reconcile us back to him, because he is a God of grace and mercy and second and third and fourth and fifth chances. And the last one was point of connection. And I'll have to say, on that last day, it's kind of rushed. You got to leave by 10 o'clock. They're trying to get in Bible study, breakfast, morning worship, and all that sort of thing. And so for me, this one was, I didn't connect so much with the point of connection and get my Bible study from that one, but it was between the relationship of David and Jonathan and Nathan, and about how we as a community, when we're connected together, believers and non-believers, we have to be disciples to one another and hold each other accountable. And so if the youth got nothing else from this camp, I hope it would be that they're on a path. They're not always going to stay on it. They can be reconciled back to it, but the best thing they can do is hold each other accountable. Stay connected with one another and be the best disciples that they can. I was reading this morning, and I've been trying to read through the whole Bible and just finished up the Old Testament, so the New Testament began today. And it had an asterisk beside the word disciples, and I thought, well, why has that got one there? So, of course, I go to the bottom, and it says this: disciples, those who from the beginning were servants of the Word. And now those servants of the Word are going to come and share with you about their camp.
Hello everyone, I'm Blaine, and this was my second year at Fuge at Ridgecrest Conference Center. Firstly, I would like to thank my church family for paying for this wonderful trip that helped me grow in my faith. This year's theme was Convergence, 2 paths, choose one. It was about how we all, at some point, choose between God's way and our own. I feel that this trip to camp has helped me better choose God's way over my own. I remember one night that our pastor told us a story of how a woman at a bus stop brought 11 people to Jesus, 3 of which couldn't speak English. This was because she had taken an evangelism translation class. My track times this year also taught me a lot. In apologetics, I learned about defending my faith and sharing it. And the man track taught me about how to be a godly man and overcome internal struggles like addiction and growing up to be more mature. Also in the man track, I witnessed a young boy throwing 2 cans of chewing tobacco away to symbolize him quitting. One of the best things about camp was that more people came to Jesus every night. I hope that the donation that I made to the Pray, Give, Go Foundation will help send the message of Jesus to East Asia. This was a great year at camp, and I hope that I will get to visit Ridgecrest again next year.
Hi, my name is Thomas. This past summer at Centrifuge, I made many new friends and grew closer to God. While we were there, the main idea was all about reconciliation and reconciling with God. Reconciliation means to relieve tension in a relationship, and in this case, that relationship was between us personally and God. We had different activities each night that related to reconciling with God. In my track, we did a different thing each day. We did kayaking, paintball, and laser tag. Laser tag was my favorite. It wasn't a dark room or anything like that. It was outside in broad daylight. And I actually did pretty good. This summer at Fuge, I had a really great time with God, and other people also having a great time with God. Thank you for allowing all of us to go to camp.
Hey church family, I'm currently in Greensboro at school and I'm not able to come home this weekend. However, I still wanted to share my camp experience with you guys. So I've been going to church camp since I was about 8 years old, and I've always loved getting to go to camp. So when Pam asked me to be a chaperone this year, I couldn't say no. This year at camp was different for me. It was the first time I've gone to camp and not been a camper. I'm not gonna lie, it made me feel old at first getting asked to be a chaperone. However, I loved every second of getting to hang out with the youth. I had never been to Ridgecrest before, but I loved getting to be in the mountains and I enjoyed the cooler temperature. The food there was amazing, which is always a plus when going to church camp. My track time there was social ministry. We served at several different locations in Asheville. This track time was very humbling. We went to nursing homes, a thrift store, and an apartment complex. My favorite was getting to go to the apartment complex and hanging out with some kids. We played games with them and prayed with them and taught them about Jesus, and it was amazing. I pray that while we were there, that we impacted their lives and that their lives are still being impacted from the actions of this previous summer. Overall, my camp experience was amazing. From the fellowship with my youth group to serving in Asheville and laughing until my sides hurt. It was all wonderful. I would like to thank everyone who made this trip possible. I hope that everyone has a great Sunday and is blessed by this service. Bye.
Good morning. My name is Emma Henstock, and this past June I attended Fuge Camp at Ridgecrest. This year I attended Mission Fuge, which is where you got to go to different ministry sites as your track time and try to share the gospel of Christ with strangers through personal stories and experiences. I was assigned to social ministry, and we had a different site to go to each day and help out. The first day, we got to serve food to a nursing home residents and their families for Father's Day. We were able to talk to some of the residents staying there and help feed those who couldn't feed themselves. One of the residents I met was Gloria. She clearly suffered from Alzheimer's, thinking that she was only 30-something years old and telling stories about her childhood. She allowed me and some of the other campers to even hold her baby doll as she talked with us about her past, and even cussed a little in her storytelling, which made us all laugh. The second day of camp, we folded and organized clothes for a local thrift shop. This was kind of a boring job, and we were on our feet for about 5 hours working. Being there, handling dirty, stained clothes, made me feel grateful that I have the opportunity to go and buy new stuff and don't have to rely on secondhand unless I choose to. Our third day of camp was my favorite because we went to an apartment complex and played with the kids of all ages. I loved the interactions we got to have with the kids, and it seemed like they all had a very fun time being around us. We made bracelets that allowed us to tell about Jesus, played kickball with the older kids, and made up games to play with the parachute. We also sat around and sang Disney songs with the little girls. All of the mission tracks we went to were great, but my favorite part of camp was definitely worshiping with Rush of Fools. Rush of Fools was our band this year at camp. They've been there the past 2 years and have been amazing each year. Through their music, I really felt like I could connect with God in my church group because we all really enjoyed the worship music and the message the songs delivered. I loved having church group time because we all got to talk about our day and what we had enjoyed most so far. Since we all had different tracks and some of my friends went to Centrifuge, it was cool to hear what everybody had done that day and what they had experienced and learned in Bible times and rec times. Our Fuge theme this year was convergence and how we can choose the right path to walk down as we go through life. I feel like we, as a youth group, all made a stronger commitment to following the path of God that God has set out for us, one that builds a stronger relationship with Jesus and helps us recognize when the world wants us to go another way. I would like to thank the church for all the time, money, and support they have given to us through fundraisers over the year. Going to church camp gives us a week to focus on how we are growing as believers and disciples of Christ. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ava Tharp, and this year I attended Mission Fuge at Ridgecrest Conference Center. My Mission Fuge track was Games and Rec. We visited the D Review apartments in Asheville, and it was very eye-opening. Each day we had to go around to the apartments, knock on doors, and had about 15 to 20 kids come out. We attempted to share the gospel with these kids, but they weren't very accepting. One day, me and Bailey were telling this little girl about Jesus and God. We started telling her about Jesus, and she said, "Yeah, that's my mom." I looked at Bailey and I was like, okay, this isn't going anywhere. So we talked about God. She was like, "Oh yeah, that's my dad." And I was like, okay, I'm done. We tried to move on to different kids, but the reaction was mainly the same. On the last day at tracks, we went to the DV apartments and many things happened. Some not so great, but some were very eye-opening. Then we came back to Ridgecrest for Mega Relay, which is a huge relay race. My Bible study group won, and our counselor was super excited because she was like one of the most over-the-top people I've ever met in my life. This year's theme was convergence, 2 paths, choose one, which meant to choose God's path for your life and not go by your own thoughts and actions. This Bible verse for this year was Psalm 25, 4-5. Show me your ways, Lord. Teach me your paths. Guide me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. My hope is in you all day long. Camp was really eye-opening this year due to the situations we saw, which made me realize how blessed I am. Thank you, church family, for supporting camp each year and allowing us to go to camp so that we can grow in our faith.
Good morning. I'm speaking on behalf of Emma Swain, who this morning is sick, so may we send our prayers to her. Deuteronomy 31:6 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He never leaves nor forsakes you." I really found meaning in this verse at camp. We talked about how we as Christians need to choose the most difficult road, even though we want to choose the simple road. Only God can get us through the most difficult times of the road. We will be tested, but when we seek God, He will give us strength through temptations. At worship, our preacher talked about a couple of things that I really enjoyed. One of those things is that sometimes we all feel like we fail to God. Even though we are Christians, we sin every day. Thanks to Jesus, all we have to do is ask for forgiveness. God shows His love to us every day, and He showed it most when He sent His Son, Jesus, to die in our place for our sin. Another thing that I really enjoyed was a question our preacher asked one night. He asked us, "What are we substituting for Christ?" Along with this, he added, "To find our identity, we make idols." We all find ourselves substituting things in place of Jesus. He referred to our things as water pots. He asked, can we sit our water pots down, walk away from it, and walk towards Jesus? It seems like an easy question, but when we think about it, it's not so easy. It's something to ponder on, and when you do, you realize that Jesus gave all, and we need to put all things aside and focus on Him all the time instead of focusing on Him on our time. I would like to give a big thank you to everyone who contributed to our 2017 camp, and also to Carla, Missy, and Keith for taking us. Thank you.
I hope that they've spoken slowly and enunciated well enough for you to understand their message of today. There are two paths. It's up to each one of us to choose one. And unfortunately, we have to ask that question to ourselves every day. Whose path are we on? As Emma Swain said, what water pot are we carrying around? What idol can we not walk away from? And how will we rely on God to fix it and be our strength and our refuge? You support us through the years so much in what you give and the prayers that you offer. You made us disciples because you are the examples of what disciples do, and I can't thank you enough for that. So let's pray and go out and be the hands and feet of Jesus.